First, let's start with this case. For the last 20 years, I have planned a family trip each year. I love traveling, and organizing these trips is my way of sharing this passion with my siblings and their children. It's also a wonderful way to spend quality time together. I cover the cost of the tours and transportation to the destination, while they handle tips and incidentals. Over the years, we have visited incredible places like Turkey, South Africa, Vietnam, Croatia, Panama, Mongolia, and Iceland. Each trip costs approximately $4,000 to $6,000 per person and requires extensive planning and budgeting over months, sometimes years. I typically start by polling the family about their availability 18 to 24 months before the planned trip. My nephew, who is in his late 20s, has consistently RSVP'd yes to the last 4 trips, only to cancel at the very last minute, within a week of departure. Unfortunately, his cancellations come so close to the travel date that I can't recover the cost of his fare. His reasons for backing out are always unrelated to emergencies that would qualify for a travel insurance claim. Examples include work obligations as an accountant, attending a friend's wedding, a concert he had tickets for, or even a high school reunion. Currently, I am planning a cruise to the Galapagos Islands for October 2026. Given his track record, I decided not to invite my nephew this time because he has proven unreliable. However, this decision has caused an uproar in my family. While no one has explicitly boycotted the trip, they have been extremely vocal in expressing their displeasure, accusing me of unfairly targeting him. To find a middle ground, I suggested he could still join if he provided a deposit up front, with the promise that I would return it if he actually attended. Unfortunately, this suggestion seemed to upset my family even more. The backlash grew to the point that I mentioned the possibility of canceling the trip altogether. Now, only my younger sister is speaking to me. She told me the rest of the family considers me selfish and is even discussing cutting ties with me if I go through with canceling the trip. I feel heartbroken and overwhelmed. I love my family deeply, but I am at a loss for how to handle this situation. Was I wrong to exclude my nephew from this trip? Let's start judging. So in the last 4 years, your nephew has wasted somewhere between $16,000 and $24 of your money, and no one in your family thinks there's anything wrong with that? They clearly think you have endless amounts of money and feel entitled to it. I would absolutely refrain from planning further vacations for them since they are treating you so badly. His parents should be mortified that he has repeatedly done this and offered to cover any non-refundable costs since he has not had the grace to do so himself. You are definitely facios. You're not in the wrong. How does your family treat you when you are on these vacations? How do they treat you over the course of your day-to-day life? Their current behavior does not trend with people who are appreciative and gracious. It would align more with people who are selfish and entitled. The issue for your nephew is that he has no skin in this game. He did not find out about these conflicts the week before. He just didn't tell you about them. Sounds like when it came down to it, he just didn't really want to go on these trips. Does he not realize you incurred non-refundable costs? Did he accept the invitations? Or did his parents accept on his behalf without consulting him? If they accepted in his behalf, maybe they are reacting poorly now out of guilt. See, this is actually their fault, not their son's. Assuming you still want to go on trips with these people, I would talk to him directly and explain all the costs incurred on his behalf over the past several years. Tell him that you will include him this year if he pays last year's non-refunded costs. Tell him the date he has to let you know by if he intends to back out. After that point, he won't be invited again unless he pays those non-refundable costs. And by the way, this is all very disrespectful and not how you should treat someone who is giving you a free vacation. Let me get this straight. You plan, book, and pay for an insanely huge family vaca every year. There's one person who always wastes your money. You don't want to waste money on them. And now your family is saying if you don't continue to pay for the insanely expensive vacations, they will disown you? Your family sucks. They're at best entitled. At worst, abusers who are using you for your money and ready to dump you the moment you aren't useful to them anymore. You're not in the wrong. Tell them you won't cancel the trip, but everyone can pay their own way. When they threaten to cut you off, say nice, saves me the cash. You're not in the wrong. Your family has been using you. I would be so angry if a relative has consistently flaked, costing another family member $30 over the years without reimbursing them. You've probably spent over $500,000 on trips with your family, and they are treating you this way? It's time to make new friends and travel partners. Your family doesn't care about you. They are only around for the fancy trips and your money. Otherwise, they would have agreed to consequences for flaking. Next up, last night my boyfriend and I were invited out with a couple of friends to a seafood boil restaurant. I'm a bit particular when it comes to food, and one of the things I really dislike is seafood. My boyfriend, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. He's open to eating just about anything. For context, I'm 21 and he's 24. At the restaurant, my boyfriend shared a large portion of the seafood boil with some of his friends, while I ordered a separate meal since seafood isn't my thing. He's fully aware of my eating habits, but he has a habit of encouraging me to try new foods. It's something he does often. About halfway through the meal, he offered me a small piece of lobster, which I had never tried before. He held it out to me with his hand, and after some convincing, I decided to give it a try. He was watching me for my reaction and then kissed my temple. Throughout the meal, he cracked the lobster legs for me and gave me small pieces to try. Near the end of the meal, before we left, I went to wash my hands, and one of my friends came with me. While we were there, she told me I should really keep role-playing with my boyfriend more private. I laughed, thinking she was joking, but it became clear she was serious. Confused, I asked her what she meant. She explained that while it's fine if we have some kind of dynamic, it wasn't appropriate at the dinner table. I told her not to be ridiculous and assured her it was nothing like that. It was completely innocent. She got a bit upset and said she had seen how my boyfriend interacted with me and how he looked at me, claiming it was obvious. I was taken aback and told her that her interpretation was completely off base. Things were a little tense between us after that conversation, and my boyfriend and I left shortly after. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. I could see it if she complained about too much PDA or you're rudely shutting out the rest of the table to focus on your romance. I don't get that impression from your description, but her view of the situation could be another story. But role play? Sounds more like she's jealous, either of your relationship or because she has some interest in one of you. If she were the only other friend there, I'd think she might have felt like a third wheel. But sounds like there was at least one other person to interact with. Sounds like it came across as DDLG type stuff. You might not intend for it to come across that way, but I'd say, no one is in the wrong because at the basic level, this is your friend trying to tell you that your behavior was inappropriate. We weren't there, so it's hard to judge, but at minimum, you should consider what she said. You're not an idiot for laughing, but you should still give it thought about whether your behavior was really appropriate for a public setting. The whole, "it took a bit of convincing, but I did eat it" part suggests very strongly to me that you behave a lot more like a child than you probably realize. You're not in the wrong. It sounds like an innocent moment between you and your boyfriend, but your friend's interpretation was odd, and maybe reflects her own perspectives. Laughing it off was a natural reaction. Next up, my 17-year-old son was recently diagnosed with a wheat allergy. For months, he had been dealing with digestive issues, and after numerous tests, we finally discovered he can't consume wheat. As soon as we found out, I immediately went into research mode. I started reading labels, learning all the different terms for wheat, and buying hundreds of dollars worth of snacks and food for him to try. I even took him to specialty stores like Whole Foods and other organic markets, spending even more money. I stocked up on alternative flours and began cooking gluten-free meals at home. Despite all this, he was still experiencing digestive problems. After a follow-up appointment with the doctor, it turned out the only confirmed issue was wheat. Then we discovered why. He's been spending his paycheck on biscuits and gluten-filled snacks at school. When he visits friends, he indulges in fast food like McDonald's or eats pizza and cake. Both the doctor and I have warned him repeatedly that while his reactions are currently mild to moderate, they could worsen over time. He even came home last weekend with hives and urticaria after eating wheat at a friend's house. He's not a young child. He's 17. I can't monitor him 24/7 or control everything he eats. We've gone through this journey together, learning what wheat is, how to identify it, and which foods are safe for him. However, the school has said they won't restrict his purchases, even with a doctor's note, because he's considered old enough to make his own choices. While they do provide gluten-free alternatives, he refuses to eat them. He's incredibly stubborn. Tonight, we went to a gluten-friendly restaurant and I specifically ordered him a gluten-free meal that cost $26, significantly more than our meals, which were around $15 to $18. He agreed to the selection but barely touched it. Instead, he snuck food off others' plates and ate bread. My mother-in-law, who sometimes enables this behavior, brushed it off, saying, "A little bit won't hurt." However, it wasn't just a little. He ended up eating several bites of wheat-based food. On the car ride home, he felt ill, and the car smelled unpleasant because of his gut issues. When I confronted him, he tried to deny eating wheat, but eventually admitted it because he's not good at lying. Now he wants to stay home due to stomach pain, but I'm frustrated because he's causing the issue himself. I've been doing everything I can, begging, trying, and cooking gluten-free meals for over 9 months. I've spent thousands of dollars trying to find alternatives that taste good. At this point, I'm starting to feel like I'm wasting my time, money, and energy because he's not following the diet at all. Am I a terrible mom for feeling like I should stop going above and beyond to accommodate his diet if he refuses to stick to it? I don't want to seem uncaring, but I'm exhausted and don't know what else to do. Am I in the wrong? Let's start judging. He's having trouble confronting his new wheat-free life and is rebelling, more or less hoping that if he ignores the problem, then it will go away. Teens making dangerous choices around their allergy is probably not that uncommon. In a way, it's the most dangerous part of life in which to have an allergy. If your allergy is discovered as a young child, it's just part of your normal what you grow up with. If your allergy develops as an adult, you are mature enough to grieve your old way of life and settle into the new way. If your allergy develops as a teen, it's the time of life when you have independence without maturity and when you are rebelling against everything. I would give him some grace in your own mind. In practice, you're mom or dad, so you have to keep pushing. If you stop making his wheat-free meals, it just validates the idea that his allergy is not a big deal. To me, it sounds like he needs therapy, i.e., someone to nudge him toward a habit of safe choices, who doesn't have that combination of love and authority that a teen has with their mom, that makes them want to push all your buttons and prove you wrong when you say they'll eventually have to behave like a responsible adult. I would also see if his allergist can talk to him and give him a more detailed explanation of why it is dangerous to do what he is doing. I'm gluten-free because I have celiac. I'm going in polycyclically. You're not in the wrong. Please stop buying GF alternatives and just stick with fruit, veg, protein, and rice. Your kid isn't taking this seriously and is causing him severe damage. Personally, I would take him back to the doctor for a sit-down. But in the end, you can't force him. It's really an annoying situation, and you are doing a good job. I suffered for years. I just don't understand why he would like being sick. Maybe therapy. This is a complicated issue, and I genuinely think you should go to therapy with him. He's choosing to poison himself, but that's very different from you doing it. If you stop doing gluten-free for meals that you know he's eating, then you're actively harming him. It's a tough line to tread. Something you could try is making him completely responsible for his own diet. You don't have to cook GF, but he's also not welcome to your food. He needs to cook his own food, buy his own groceries, or you can give him a budget and manage himself. You're not in the wrong. But it's also his health, his choice. Just don't actively poison your kid. Next up, when I was in high school, I decided to be a vegetarian for a couple of years. I really enjoyed the lifestyle, not in an overly extreme way, but more because I liked being part of a supportive community and trying something different. Now, as an adult, I'm no longer vegetarian, but I still look back on that time fondly. Recently, I overheard my mom and grandma talking and laughing with their friends. They were sharing a story, and as I listened, I realized they were talking about my vegetarian phase. It turns out that during that time, my whole family, immediate and extended, which includes about 50 people, had been playing a game to see how often they could sneak meat into my food without me noticing. They would do things like cook vegetables in bacon grease, or serve dishes at family gatherings that had hidden meat in them. This happened at birthday parties, Thanksgiving dinners, family events, and even regular meals at home. For years, it was like an inside joke among them. When I found out, I felt hurt and upset. I confronted my family about it, but their response was that they did it for my own good because they believed I needed more protein. However, they kept giggling and smiling as they talked about it, which made it feel less like genuine concern and more like they were still enjoying the joke. I understand they might have had good intentions, but it still feels mean to me. When I expressed how I felt, they dismissed me, saying I was being a drama queen for being upset. They acted like I was overreacting and told me to just laugh along with them. Am I wrong for feeling upset about this? Should I just let it go and laugh with my family, or is it okay to feel hurt by what they did? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. It's valid you're upset by this. At the same time, you can't retroactively do anything about it, unfortunately. So pick your battles. Although I would be wary of eating their food, considering the history of food tampering. Also, you may need to help your family understand nutrition and just basic science. Bacon grease has 0 protein in it because it's a fat, not a protein. It sounds like they think animal products equals protein and that plant products can't have protein, and that's just horribly inaccurate. You're not in the wrong, and I mean no offense, but those members of your family are mean little sociopaths. What else have they been doing to you secretly over the years? If you developed a food allergy, would they think you were faking it and try and poison you? You're not in the wrong. There is a reason that tampering with someone's food is a felony charge. This is them being disgusting human beings who have no respect for anyone who doesn't think like them. I am willing to bet their lack of respect and bad behavior can be seen in other situations you haven't thought about yet. I am not vegetarian, but I would never do this to anyone, especially my own family. If they genuinely can't see how messed up this behavior is, you need to distance yourself from them. You're not in the wrong. It's about respect, which they didn't have for you. I would tell them that this really changes how you view them and your relationships with them. Hold them accountable. Whenever they say they're being truthful, just point out that you can't really know that, because they have a history of lying to you. You don't have to get mad, just be upfront that you see them differently now, and that's their fault. You don't have to cut them off or anything, but some healthy distance won't hurt.